This episode of Tales from the Lot is sponsored by ShakedownT-shirts.com with unique lot-style T-shirts, license plate frames, coffee mugs, and all sorts of things for Grateful Dead, Fish, Zappa, Panic, and more. ShakedownT-shirts.com, where all U.S. orders over $35 ship free. And just for Tales from the Lot listeners, use the code LOT20 for 20% off of any order. That's LOT20. Tales from the Lot, episode 0203. It's the soundtrack to your life. Jeff Kerper's here to talk about 12/31/81 at the Oakland Auditorium. Here we go. Welcome to Tales from the Lot. This is Will. My guest today is Jeff Kerper. We're here to talk about 12/31/81 at the Oakland Auditorium. Not the Kaiser, oddly enough at that point. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you, Will. How are you?
Awesome, yeah. Great. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it. I will have to, go ahead.
It was the Kaiser. It was the Oakland Aud, and then they just changed the name. It's the same building. I think the name changed maybe like 80, 82, 83. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
I was kind of looking through the history of that, and I noticed like somewhere in the like I saw 85 it had changed at least by then. So somewhere in there, yeah. And just as a quick note, that you may recognize the last name there. We did have Jeff's brother on a few episodes ago, Gary. So that was one of my favorites. So I fully expect you to blow him away with this one. So not that it's a competition.
Definitely not.
All right. So you've seen some Grateful Dead shows, but where did you come from to get to that? Were you like Beatles, Zeppelin kind of guy? What were you listening to before the Grateful Dead?
In high school, Stones, Beatles, and I moved into Southern rock pretty early. Went to see like Marshall Tucker when I was a sophomore in high school. And so like Marshall Tucker, Allman Brothers, but really Tucker. I was really into them. And then you mentioned my brother. So he went off to college and he had called me and he said, everybody's talking about this band called the Grateful Dead up here. And so I bought him, his birthday's in January, and I bought him the album of Skeletons from the Closet. I mean, that's what you do, right? You get the greatest hits. Yeah. But I got it, he was away. And I think I got it in like November or December of 76. And I slit the plastic. I wanted to hear it, man. I couldn't wait. So I slit the plastic. I put it on, I put the headphones on, and I never gave it to him. I was like, this is pretty good, man. This is interesting stuff. So that was my first exposure to them. Mm-hmm. And then a friend from high school lent me Skull and Roses and Year of 72. And it was all over. I mean, just the headphones in my room with Bertha. And it's like, wow, this is different. This is not unlike anything I've ever heard before. And then, China Cat from Europe 72, Jackstraw. I mean, there's just so many great songs. And that was it. Full speed. We were into it. And then the Dead movie came out also before I ever saw the band, and so we went to see the movie. It was a huge, field trip. And wow. And we were like, oh my God, are we ever going to get to see this band? It really gives you this feeling that like people are waiting in line and stuff like that. We're like, will I ever get to see the Grateful Dead? And then they, I remember driving in the summer and they announced that they were playing at Englishtown with Marshall Tucker opening up. I mean, what are the chances? Was Marshall Tucker, the New Riders, Marshall Tucker, and the Grateful Dead at Englishtown? And I just, U-turn on the road. I went to pick up my friend. We used to have to drive down to like the Macy's or the Alexanders in White Plains, New York, and go to Ticketmaster. We were probably the first people in the entire East Coast to buy tickets. We were waiting at the window for them to open up. And of course, it was almost unlimited seating. It didn't sell out. There was no such thing. I mean, they were going to let as many people in as they could. There was about 125 there, maybe 150,000. It was a massive concert. And 16 of us drove down. It was the Labor Day before senior year of high school. And we had 2 station wagons with 8 guys in each station wagon. And it was a memorable moment in my life. I mean,
yeah. Forget about festivals, but like the Grateful Dead would have shows with multiple bands. They're playing 2 or 3 sets. And that wasn't unusual. And it's not billed as a festival at all. It's like, hey, we're going to play and we're going to have a whole lot of people there. And Yeah, that's where the whole festival thing started, I guess. But
Yeah.
it wasn't that out of the ordinary at that time.
Yeah, the music started at noon and ended at midnight. It was three bands, and it
Yeah.
was brutally hot and just a lot of interminable delays. But it was a tremendous experience. So we were on the bus, and then all senior year we were on the bus, and so my brother had seen Cornell before Englishtown. He
Hmm.
so he saw that show, and then in the fall he went up and I think he saw Rochester and Colgate.
And there's
And
no doubt he was raving about this band, trying to get you to go after
yeah,
seeing
yeah, we
Cornell.
were, and we no, we, by the time we saw them, we were 100% on board. I mean, we were, we'd been read the Kool-Aid acid test and really got into all the, there was magazines, before there was Relics, there was Dead Relics. It was like the precursor. It was just a Grateful Dead fanzine, and they would you couldn't get that information anywhere else. They would have the set lists and stories from the road. It's like, wow, there was no internet. I mean, this was really inside information. It was great.
Right. Right. And then that turned into like the Dupree's Diamond News at some point. I remember in my era of going to see him in the 90s, I was always looking forward to finding whoever was handing those out totally free, to boot, and seeing, where they've been playing, what they've been playing, what I could expect to see, typically in Deer Creek or wherever I was there in the Midwest. But, yeah, so you saw the English Town was
That
your
was my
first
first.
time.
Yeah,
That was,
and then in the spring they play. I went up to RPI in May of '78, and then they played at New Haven, which is about a 50-minute drive from the town I grew up in, and we got 40 tickets for the high school class. I mean, eight guys
wow.
went down and got five tickets each, or maybe five guys went down and got eight tickets. Anyway, there were 40 tickets, and so everybody, who was slightly interested went, and it was a mind altering experience. It was really
Yeah,
my
that's
first. That was
fantastic.
my first time seeing them and getting the full electric experience, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
And so that was really shocking. I didn't know music could be that good. I didn't know you could have that kind of experience in life. It just like I would say it blew my mind, and I haven't yet recovered.
Yeah. Yeah. They do that. They do that.
They do
Uh,
that. Yeah.
so that was like your senior trip or something then, right? Like,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
Um, and then, and then I followed them, then I started college and I started seeing them a lot. I went to college in Virginia, so I saw them a lot in the, Hampton area, Baltimore a bunch, DC. I would come up to the Northeast when I could and just mix it up. And then by 81, I'd probably seen, I would guess maybe, 35 shows. I was pretty diligent in high school. You could see them.
Yeah.
They would come around the East Coast 2 or 3 times a year, and you just have to work it out and see as many as you could. And it was going to be my 21st. My birthday is New Year's Day, and my 21st birthday was going to be at midnight, 12/31/81,
Hmm.
and so I flew out to San Francisco for the week of shows. I had a friend who was living there, and so I had a place to stay,
Hmm.
and they had tickets for all of the run leading up to New Year's. We didn't have New Year's tickets yet, but we were working on it. And I saw that week of shows. So that was really the first time I'd seen a block like that,
Hmm.
and also my first time seeing shows in California, which is really a big difference from shows on the East Coast, from the noise level, the energy level. I mean, the fans obviously are just as into it, but it's not much more respectful of the music, quieter. Just sometimes, sometimes it's good. They're playing Stella Blue, and some guys not going, "Hey, Jerry," but sometimes you want. I mean, on the East Coast, when they would go crazy, I mean, the fans would go crazy, and it was just the roof would blow off the place. So that kind of thing was different.
So you were working on New Year's tickets, and uh, how did
I
how did
got
that
one
come about?
outside. I can't really remember. I mean, we got there early, and I did, just ask everybody. It was a little bit easier ticket than it was later on, but it was still New Year's,
Yeah.
and unbeknownst to me, I'm pretty sure this is true. Jerry married Mountain Girl that night. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was probably not an official ceremony. They probably would consider common law spouse anyway. But and so the entire family was there. I mean, everybody that was anybody
Mm-hmm.
in the Grateful Dead universe was there. And so in that sense, I think it was a little tougher ticket. I don't
Yeah.
know. We just needed one. I don't know. I just needed the one, and we got it. I know we missed the Flying Karamazov Brothers because that was
Gotcha.
the opening act, and
Mm-hmm.
then it started, and they came out with acoustic instruments, and Joan Baez played a set with the
Mm-hmm.
Dead as the backing band. Apparently, Mickey and Joan Baez were dating at that time,
Oh,
so
gotcha.
she was hanging,
Unfortunately,
and
that's not. I got on the archive to listen to this one, and there's a really great copy of the show, but that set's not on there. And it did mention.
I have
Go ahead.
that. I can burn
Oh,
that for you if you'd like.
I
I
would.
can. Yeah,
Yeah, indeed.
yeah.
But it did mention the Mountain Girl Jerry wedding. It seems like it was official, and I was actually almost late to hop on here with you because I was down the rabbit hole on like the Mountain Girl Wikipedia page. I'm like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be. But yeah, they did officially get married that day, and
Yeah.
after dating for 16 years.
Yeah. I don't know if you know Charlie Miller, the guy, the engineer who's been putting a ton of stuff on the archive as well as other places. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I have a download of the entire show, including Joan Baez's from him, and the quality is really sweet. So
Nice,
I
nice.
just got that recently. Yeah, I can set you up.
Love to.
And it was so if I can just go back a little bit and talk a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more about just the California thing.
Sure.
The show that's totally under the radar is 12/27/81, which is just whatever, just another random amazing show of the Grateful Dead, one that's not that well known or not that talked about, or not on Mount Rushmore of all the Grateful Dead shows of all time, but blew me away. I mean, I was just it was for the first wheel I'd ever seen. It was a tremendous show. And right after it ended, in 1981, when you're in 1981, you think that the 60s was a really long time ago. But now that you're here in 2022, 1981 doesn't sound like it's that far away from 1965, and the continuity was strong, especially in San Francisco. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you were 18 years old in 1965, in 1981 you were 33. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of 33-year-old heads there who had been there back in the day. And I mean, after the concert, like 100, 200 people like linked arms in the middle of the floor and just started swaying back and forth and like that. And it was the most trippy thing I've ever done. I mean, I just got welcomed into that. I just grabbed arms with total strangers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, this is a little bit what it was like in the Trips Festival and the Acid Test. I mean, it's like unbelievable, the continuity of that kind of stuff. It really, I mean, it went through the entire Grateful Dead, even right to the end. I mean, that was still going on. I've been at shows where they handed out LSD from the soundboard. There was like a carton with 8 big cups of water, and the soundboard says, "Here, take a sip and pass it on." And I mean, and everybody on the floor had some, So
I was a little late to
was
that party, unfortunately.
that was 1979. So
Yeah.
I mean, so the thing was still happening. You know what I mean? Even though it was 15 years after the acid test. So anyway, so that was what I mentioned in that 12/27/81 is one of my favorite shows.
I had my dead base open here, so when you said it, I
Yeah,
just flipped the page over to it. The Final Passenger, which I love that song.
What's weird? The night
too.
before, they say that they played the 11, and I was there. I didn't really remember. It's like, oh man, I probably would have recognized that. You think? I went back and listened to it. You can kind of hear it a little bit, but it was pretty vague.
It's like when you see Mountain Jam, you're like, maybe it was, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And so then New Year's, it was just, the spectacle of New Year's was something that I didn't know. I had no, again, there's no internet, there's no video, there's no YouTube. You had no idea unless you knew somebody who was at New Year's and saw the Grateful Dead. I had heard that Bill Graham came down in 1977 on a joint. I didn't really know what that meant, but they said that,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so they do the whole first set. That was great. The shakedown is particularly awesome, and
Indeed.
then and then
I just re-listened to it. Yeah.
a long break before New Year's. Like they leave at like 11:15, like a 45-minute break. And I moved out to California in '83, so I saw another 8 New Year's. So that was like my birthday. I mean, I'm definitely going to see as many New Year's as I can. And that 45 minutes leading up to New Year's at a Grateful Dead concert, you have never seen people partying so hard in your life. I mean, they're like two-fisted, just trying to ingest whatever they can. I mean, people breaking out champagne bottles from their fake bottoms of their camera cases, and people doing whippets up on the balcony. And I mean, it's like people really getting revved up because they're just going to play. It's the most safe space you can be in. It's like waiting in Times Square for midnight. But the Grateful Dead doesn't play at midnight. Can you imagine if then they played for another 3 hours? It's really amazing.
It looked like that same energy transferred over to the stage. I mean, like as I'm listening to it, it just sounds like a party on stage. It really does. And of course, they've got people from New Writers and Joan Baez coming out and doing all kinds of stuff. I took away from listening to this. That was a hell of a party.
It was a hell of a party. Yeah. Matt Kelly's playing some harp on there. I think Erto and Flor Parima playing some drums. John Cipollina comes out and plays on Not Fade Away. Joan Baez comes out and sings on It's All Over No Baby Blue. So that really, and then about 5 minutes before midnight, this cable gets lowered from the stage. And Ken Kesey is like suspended from this cable. What's amazing is you can watch this stuff on YouTube. It's it's what we do on New Year's is like go back and relive. I mean, you were there. It's like there that my 21st birthday. I can watch it. It's amazing. Anyway, they lower Ken Kesey, and he's like dangling, and he's got the microphone, and he's doing all, and he leads the entire Oakland Auditorium in hyperventilating. I don't know if you did this when you were in high school, but we like Cheap Thrills, where you hyperventilate and then hold your breath or whatever and just get a rush, right? Anyway, he said, this is something we used to do with the answer test. I want you to hold your neighbor's arms. I want to make sure nobody falls, nobody hurts themselves. Hold on to somebody. And he gets everybody to like deep breathing in unison, leading right up to midnight. So like, not only is everybody has been ingesting everything they brought, now you're hyperventilating in unison, and then Bill Graham comes down in this spaceship like on guy wires, and he's flying across the top of the arena, and he's throwing like he's dressed up as Father Time, and he's throwing like bomblets. They just come, I don't know, they're just like exploding in midair, and he finally gets to the stage, and they lower it down, and 10,000 balloons fall from the sky and confetti, and every house light goes up full blast, and they blast into Iko Iko. And I think you can get my enthusiasm. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My head was exploding. I was as high as I've ever been. And it was mind boggling. Yeah. And then,
it translates so well. Like they're just like that. I remember that's the tape I wore out back in the day, just because things like that. Iko, it's not a song I love, but man, that one's so good with just all the energy and everybody just joining in.
Yeah.
I think there was a trumpet, and I didn't really realize that. And I knew Joan Baez helped in this version, and I was listening, and I was like, is that Joan Baez sounding like Yoko Ono? And then it took me a minute, and I'm like, oh no, that's a trumpet. Well,
no. There's definitely no trumpet on stage. There was no trumpet on stage. So it might have been Joan Baez. Oh, no, you know what it is? There's I think it's Matt Kelly on harmonica.
Okay.
It's
It,
like,
it had a trumpetish sound.
it does. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And
Yeah.
at first it sounded like a vocal, like a female vocal, and I was really concerned, but it was
Yeah.
okay.
Listen
Yeah.
to it again. It's harmonica.
Got it.
Weirdly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was amazing. And then, and then after I go, the Hopsluts come down, they go into playing the band, and you're like, all right, I say goodbye to my friends. I'm like, catch you later. I'm going into the hive, want to go and commune with my brethren, and just dance. It was just, I don't know. It was like the best I've ever danced in my life. You're just standing there. I just remember there was like where the portal was to go out into the hallway. So there was a light there. There were people walking past, and I was sitting there just going crazy and dancing. And like these hot chicks would walk by and they would dance with me, and I was like, I mean, it was incredible. And then I started getting sick to my stomach. Must have been something I ate. And
Maybe I had
and
too much
so
too fast.
maybe. And so I thought I had to throw up. So I went in the bathroom and I had a couple of dry heaves. I was like, shit, I was, breaking out in a sweat. And I came out, and like just some total strangers just there. And it's like, dude, man, are you okay? And I'm like, I think I'm okay. It's like, it's cool. Happy New Year. Like, the guy gave me a big hug, and I watched him. It was just, the spirit that goes on there, the love for your fellow deadhead, especially at a thing like that, was
Yeah.
just incredible. So I went back in, and I was still a little shaky on my feet, and I just walked up into to try to find a seat. And the same thing happened. I sat. I was like, can I sit here? And they're like, well, my girlfriend. I'm like, I'm not feeling well. They're like, oh, please, let me move the jacket. Come have a seat. Can I get you some water? Can I do it? People were just total strangers, and I was so confused. They did playing the band into Terrapin Station, back into playing the band, and I thought the concert was going to be over. You know, that would be the end of the second set. And so they finished playing the band, and they went into their drum solo. I was like, what the, man. And they come out after the drums, and you see it's like the other one, Not Fade Away, Going Down the Road, Morning Dew. I
Yeah.
just like
This is
just
just
let's
like
just roll out the big guns.
the
Was
classic.
incredible.
This is the show
And,
everybody wants to see.
exactly. And then Bill Graham comes out and says they're going to play another set. And I mean, the roar that went up when that happens, it was already like 2 a.m. And he's like, they're going to play another set. And I'm like, all right, I got to go find my friends. And, so it was just, it was such a memorable night. And then
Yeah.
like at 4 a.m, my buddies just drove me to the airport. I caught like a 6:30 a.m. flight back to New York. And I mean, I'm on the plane, going, oh my God, what I just, and of course nobody else cares, you're telling the flight attendant, it's like, hey, that was such an amazing concert.
What about the freedom of a band to say, we're just going to go ahead and play another set? A band that size to a crowd that size, and everybody stays. That's not going to happen these days, probably too much.
It won't, but I mean, that was not that unusual. They had played the extra set at the closing of Winterland. And so that was kind of, we were, secretly hoping for that. It wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe they're playing another set. It's like,
Right.
yes, they're playing another, and they have, and they played Dark Star.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah.
that.
But,
Yeah,
by the way,
that's why.
it's been like,
Exactly.
like 3 years since they'd played Dark Star or something like that.
Right.
It was a pretty good one too. There was, it's nice and mellow in spots, and like just Jerry just floating melodies over the top of it. Good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I just personally, I think by that point, I was kind of spent. I mean, all my emotion had been expended so many times over the evening that it was just great. It was satisfying, but it wasn't like memorable. I wasn't as locked into the music for the last set as I had been for the especially that stuff after the drums were really memorable.
Yeah, that's to be expected after like 7 hours or however long you'd been there by that point. I'm feeling pretty wiped after 2 sets a lot of times.
Exactly.
I
And
get that.
I was young. I mean, I was 21, so I had, youthful energy, and I had electricity coursing through my system. So I had that
Yeah.
going for me. But yeah, tremendous thing. It was really. I remember getting back home, and I was I was like on break before I had to go back to college. I was sleeping until like two in the afternoon, just like I was in like this twilight where I was just dreaming about the show. I would just for hours I would just dream about being back at the concert, and it
Hmm.
was really
I
awesome.
know. I know that dream. I've had that dream. Yeah.
And once I moved to California, I had friends that would fly out every year for New Year's. It's like I
Mhm.
have to come out for the balloons. It's all about the balloons. And like the first time my wife went, I was like, remember, at midnight, keep your mouth closed. And she didn't pay attention. And she was just like, and got a mouthful of confetti.
That's awesome. I never did make it to a New Year's show. I was always catching like spring and summer stuff, but
Yeah, of
I
course.
always wanted to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't
Well,
on the West Coast at the time.
it's my birthday, so I have a valid excuse, and then we'd fill up the house with guests. People come. It was really that was the best thing ever, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how many shows did you see altogether?
Just short of 200, probably like depends how you count it, but in the low 190s, I would say. I mean, the account them playing at the Bill Graham Memorial where they played like an hour.
Yeah,
That counts. Yeah.
yeah, that's a
I
lot of
went.
shows. Either way, you count it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so hell yeah, it was a good
So yeah,
time.
no, so that's about that. I know I'm not at 200. I know I'm north of 190. So yeah, it was easier out there in California. I mean, you can see 15 shows and not go more than an hour.
Hmm.
So just local shows. We lived in Berkeley, lived in Oakland, lived in San Francisco. The furthest would be like Cal Expo in Sacramento. Love that place.
Hmm.
They play at the Kaiser, they play at the Oakland Auditorium. I mean, the Oakland Coliseum. There'd be a couple of outdoor shows, the Frost, the Greeks. You didn't have to go
Yeah,
very far. You could see a lot of shows.
and then yeah, Shoreline, all that later, and yeah,
Exactly. Shoreline. Yeah, our friend had she worked for the Gap, and she had a box at Shoreline. The Gap has a
Ooh,
box, and so like it's the back of the first section, and there's waitress service and room to dance.
yeah.
So I mean, what more can you want? That was
Yeah, that's
nice. Yeah, I
fantastic.
didn't
Yeah.
particularly love that venue, but I like Cal Expo. That's an
Mhm.
underrated, really fun. You know, no rookies at Cal Expo. Only experienced deadheads would show up. It was great. Sunshine, bare feet, perfect
Yeah,
California experience. Yeah,
I remember listening to a lot of Cal Expo tapes in my life. Good
yeah.
stuff there. Uh, yeah, I'm trying to think of a particular date, but it escapes me right now. Of this one Cal Expo show.
They definitely I'd say once I moved to Cal, starting 80, 83, 84. They all kind of blend together. The early
Mhm.
ones I have a really clear memory of. I know I can tell you what they played. I really clear memory. But whatever, if you see 40 shows at the Kaiser over 12 years, it's pretty hard to separate them after a while.
Yeah, 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 totally.
Yeah, yeah.
But this one, that one stands out
That
easily
one's
for
etched in
sure.
my memory, boy. Yeah, yeah. I think you can tell.
Yeah. Are you still? Do you still see Bob and Dead and Company and any of the
I do not.
outdoor bands?
I
No.
do not. I started, right when they started. I guess it was the other ones was the
Mhm.
first one, and then early Phil and Friends. That was good, and then
Was Warren Haynes in the other ones? Is that right?
uh,
Or at least.
no, I think it was Jimmy Herring.
Oh, yeah,
There were
Jimmy
two
Herring.
guitar players. But anyway, I don't know. I started leaving at intermission. Not the first two or three times I enjoyed it, and then emotionally, I don't know. It wasn't really resonating with me. I really miss Jerry. It was a little bit. It seemed a little bit too much like a cover band of the real thing.
Mhm.
Even I don't know. Sometimes it was better than others. I saw the one with when Joan Osborne was with the band. They played at the Garden. I think they
Mhm.
were called. I remember the names anyway. But like I said, I saw Phil and Friends probably 10 times in the last 5 times I left at intermission.
Uh,
It's like it's just not. I don't know, whatever. It's just not that satisfying. I thought it was really cool that it continues. I mean, it's amazing. It's very, very validating for me that the music that I love continues to resonate with younger people and people that never saw the band or whatever. And it's kind of like this repertoire thing where like the Duke Ellington Orchestra just plays for another 50 years. I mean, it's totally cool. And but personally, I don't really go.
Yeah,
So,
and that's, I see that when I go to those kind of things. If I go see like J-Rad, for instance, people are really enthusiastic and love that band, and and it's a lot of younger people, which I think is really cool, and it speaks to what you
really
said
cool.
about it, that it does stick around, and they're doing something a little different with it. Who knows what will happen to people here who are listening to J-Rad, because it's like you've got the product and it kind of goes through a blender, and then it goes through another blender through J-Rad, and then all these people are listening to this. What's going to come out of the other side of that in 10 years or so? It's fun to hear the evolution of it all, and Bob's still holding the torch for another summer at least.
I think it's great. The whole thing is great. But I've spent so much time listening to tapes and going through the archive and stuff like that. I started an Instagram page where I highlight mostly just cuts, either segments of songs, specific, like you got to hear this little 50-second part, or whole songs, my favorite versions and things like that, and sometimes tell some war stories in there. It's called Chestnuts from the Archive is my Instagram page, and hope everybody checks it out.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Try to be entertaining as possible. Chestnuts
Awesome.
from the Archive. Yeah.
And so, all right. So, what's some of them that you've picked out for that recently?
So it's all over the place. I mean, I'm a little bit stuck in '78 because I think that it's underappreciated, and I think the highs are higher than any other time. Like certainly post hiatus from '76 on, it's like Straight Line just gets bigger and bigger right through the end of '78. And so like the really hot versions of, whether it's Deal, Loser, Sugary, whatever, any first hit song Mississippi Happens, in '78 they just blow it out, and it's really fun to kind of pick out things. I don't really know about, especially younger, how deep into the archive or the just the body of work. I mean, they probably released 500 CDs already. I mean, how many shows have the Grateful Dead put out officially? Probably 500. And then you've got the entire archive is available to you, and then forget about the archival list. It's just like the normal body of work with there. So I mean, if you're new to the thing, where do you start? What do you listen to? You have no idea. And so they can come and listen to my page, and I'll take you by the hand and show you the best of the best. My favorite Stella Blue, 7/18/76, my favorite Dance in the Street. I like 5/6/70, etc. And it's just one man's opinion, but whatever, it's fun.
That's awesome. That sounds fantastic. If you're looking for good transitions, I just spoke to somebody last week about 3/18/95. It's the latest show I know. But the transition from playing in the band to Uncle John's band is like the smoothest, coolest, neatest thing you'll hear.
3/18/95.
It's like 25, 30 seconds long, but it's just beauty as it happens.
I mean, the whole band is great, of course. I mean, everybody is a part. It's incredible interplay. But I mean, Jerry Garcia, his guitar playing, later on he would forget words a lot. His voice was a little ragged and stuff like that. He always delivered. I mean, when it's Jerry's turn to take the solo, he understands it's like right here. And I mean, you just listen to 100 versions of a song, and it's always great. It's
and
crazy.
The soul in it, like he's maybe has an off night, but when that Stella Blue comes around, or whatever it is, when it's his moment to really be out front, totally. He's going to show you.
Completely agree. Yeah.
So you mentioned seeing the Grateful Dead movie in the theater, like when it came out.
Yeah. So we were still in high school, and I whatever, we just went, and then
Mhm.
my freshman year of college, I got the Grateful Dead movie as a fundraiser for our dorm, and heads came from miles around for that. So that was really cool. So they played it like the auditorium. Anyway, so we did that, and then I went up and visited my friend at GW, and they had the movie there. We saw it, and then it came to another theater in Charlottesville. So I mean, I saw the movie a lot, and it's really good.
It
If you're
is.
especially if you're in the right frame of mind, it's
Yeah.
really good. It can get a little long and spacey and slow, so you kind of have to be geared up to watch a movie like that because it's
You do.
long, but it's really they pack a lot in there and
Yeah.
make it
You,
very really visually appealing.
from the first 30 seconds,
Exactly.
it's amazing till the end. I have
Exactly.
I turned some friends onto the Dead through that movie as I was going, and I was playing some tapes for them. They, I wanted to give them some visual, and that's really all I had at the time. Maybe Dead Ahead or something, but the Grateful Dead movie's better. So we were watching it, and my friend's father, who owns a major Christian music label, like, what is this? And we told him. He's like, well, this is interesting. And we said, well, we're going to go here in a couple of weeks. Do you want to go with us? And he's like, sure, I'll go with you. So it was interesting, and he came, and he had a good time. And then the following year, he ended up going with my friend's mother, and they had a picnic up on the lawn at Deer Creek, and they just loved it. And yeah, it was really, really interesting to see this gentleman take to it. But he loved it, and he thought it was good music, and he understood what was going on around him, and whatever.
The music is everything. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, the music is the reason for all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's what drew him in. That's what drew me in. And that's the best part of it, really. There's a lot of fringe benefits, but it's, we were there to see Jerry and the boys and
Exactly.
Jerry. He was just, he could bring a tear to your eye or whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to, when you talk to other people about the music they like or the music you like, the impact that the Grateful Dead has had on my life, is really hard to compare to other people's experience with their music. I don't want to, it's just whatever. It's just this constant thread that's been in my life since I was 16 years old. I'm
Mhm.
61. It's 45 years of complete obsession, basically.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
in, you mentioned the circle and on the floor after the show, and it, a lot of times I kind of think of the Grateful Dead as like a tribe, or a culture among itself, and a tribe. We have our own language, sort of, and our own things that we do, and it really, when you mentioned that brought that to mind, that that's part of the whole community,
Definitely.
and everybody just getting together and doing something together that's not on a screen, these days.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's hard to pull that off on Zoom.
well, life and society and technology has changed so much, so it's a little bit hard to compare things now to what it was like back then, because that wasn't, nobody ever thought about that. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was really, they closed the doors, man, and anything could happen.
Yeah.
You know,
The
yeah,
tribe's still out here. We're everywhere.
we are everywhere, definitely.
uh, nice. All right. So, give me a recommendation of something. I think that the Deadheads, they find the Grateful Dead because they're smart, people searching and seeking for things. And, what's something else besides that you found? Maybe it's an album, a book, a movie. Um,
So, music wise, I'm a big
mhm.
bluegrass fan. Listen to a
Okay.
lot of bluegrass, and actually, you're in Colorado. There's a band from Colorado, a new band. Well, not that new, but they're called Trout Steak Revival.
Okay.
Trout Steak Revival. They probably
Hmm.
have 4 or 5 discs out, and I think they're about my favorite newer bluegrass band. I like bluegrass in all stripes, but
Right.
really like those guys. Um,
I have heard them
and I
live here.
Yeah, and they definitely check them out. They don't come east very much at all, unfortunately. If you see them, tell them I want to see them. Tell them
All
to
right.
come here. Yeah.
I will.
Um,
Hopefully they
and
listen.
there you go. And there's a book I read, um, It's called, I have it written down. It's called "I'll Take You There." It's the history of the staple singers, Mavis and Pops and the whole crew. And it's a book about the civil rights movement seen through the prism of the staple singers and their rise, because they knew Martin Luther King and they were right there at all the marches, and they were and anyway, fabulous book, that right there. It's kind of
Awesome.
like Dennis McNally wrote. He was the biographer, but the reason he was the biographer is because he wrote the book on Jack Kerouac, that was basically American history from the end of World War II through the 60s through the prism of Jack Kerouac. It's called Desolate Angel, I think. Then Jerry read that, and he's like, "I want you to be our biographer." And so, really, the second book, the Long Strange Trip, is the history of the United States from the beginning of the 60s to the 90s through the prism of the Grateful Dead. So it's kind of a fascinating like bookend thing, and I think that the author's name of "I'll Take You There" is Greg Kot, K-O-T, and he's kind of doing the same thing with the civil rights movement through the Stable Singers. Love that book.
Gotcha. So, okay, you've got a pretty massive collection of books right behind you there. Can I ask, do I see "Be Here Now" up there?
I don't think so, because that's my wife's a travel writer, and those are that's mostly travel books. And although you could say that "Be Here Now" is kind of a travel book, but
it could seem as that.
Yeah,
there was like a thick purple spine there, and I was like, it looks like.
We might have that somewhere, but it wouldn't be here. No.
It wouldn't be in with the travel.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on, Jeff. I appreciate it, and you sharing your story. And so I wanted to be there. I want to be at 12/31/81 right now.
It's a valid reason for whatever. When I see people who don't know the Grateful Dead, it's like, wow, you don't know what you're missing. That's what I think. I know it's a little self-centered, whatever, but I just, I've gotten so much joy out of the music for so many years, and it's so satisfying and just soothes my soul in so many ways. And I don't know whether other people have the same relationship to their music as that, because it's really been just the constant theme through my life.
Constant, yeah, that's the word I was going to use. It's like one of those just constant things. It's always there. It's always there. The soundtrack to your life.
Exactly. Kind of is. All right, Will. Great speaking to you. All right.
You as well.
Take care.
Hey now, do you have a great story about a Grateful Dead show you were at? I'd love to hear it and maybe have you on the podcast. Send me an email at will@talesfromthelot.org and let me know what show you would like to talk about and what made it so special to you.